Hey everyone, welcome back to the Live Proud podcast, powered by Evil Geniuses. Now, today's episode is really exciting and awesome because we have women from gaming and esports who are truly leading the way. And usually I have a little bit longer of an intro, but today I really want to get into this conversation because it's going to be a really good one. Of course, we all know Evil Geniuses' very own Ricki Ortiz. Two guests joining us are Lindsey Migliore, who is also Dr. Lindsey Migliore, is a licensed physician and founder of GamerDoc. And we also have Alanah Pearce, game developer and writer for Santa Monica Studios. Ladies, how is it going today?
It's going good.
So Still indoors for a whole year, but otherwise it's good.
I know, right?
Yeah, we're still indoors. Unfortunately, we're not always able to experience the sunshine and the good weather and air and everything like that. But eventually, or at least hopefully, we will later on this year / next year. But for every single episode, I like to start off on a positive and good note because, of course, in order for us to discuss some of the challenges and obstacles, I think it's also good to highlight the positives and the good side of the industry as well. So my first question, we're going to start off with Doc with this one is, who is a woman or who are women who inspire you?
For me, I wish I had like a really cool answer or like someone who I could say that would reach out to me later and be like, oh my gosh, you said me on that podcast. But it's always been the women of my family. For me, the women of my family find success in their own way. They make their own way in life. They don't really listen to what other people tell them what to do. And the number one person I would have to say is my grandmother. She unfortunately passed 2 weeks ago, but she was my inspiration my whole life. Had an upbringing that most people would have given up at that point, but soldiered on and made her life about bringing kindness into the world and bringing joy into the world. And that's like the most admirable thing that anyone can do. Like, we can all chase money. We can all chase success. We can all try and be the most famous person or the richest person, but spending your life devoting it to other people, I think, is the most admirable. So trying to inject a little bit of what Stella did, into my life now. So that would be my answer.
What about you, Ricki? What about you, Alanah?
I will definitely say that I agree with Lindsey, where I feel personally my grandmother is one of my biggest inspirations because she pretty much raised me from a very young age when my parents weren't able to, when they were extremely busy, always working and whatnot, and never around in my life at a younger age. And my grandmother raised 15 kids with my grandfather, but she pretty much did that all herself, and she had no qualms with helping to raise me as a young kid, and she's a strong, powerful woman that I look up to. And I feel like as for someone that I look up to, let's say like a celebrity or whatnot, I really look up to Janet Mock because she's a transgender woman who's a trailblazer, I feel, and she's also making content on Netflix and other platforms that help me identify with characters and help me fall in love with characters that I see on TV, because I feel like as a young kid growing up as a transgender youth, I did not have anyone to look up to on TV. Like, I see all these superheroes and all these women and men, but I just never identify with anybody. But then when I watch shows like Pose that she creates, I feel like I can identify and connect more with characters. And I feel like that's now that narrative is being spread amongst the world now, I feel like it's much easier for children and myself to identify and to watch something that you can look up to.
Hard to follow that, but I'm going to say also my mom, which is cheating family members. She just rules. She's so funny and has went through so much. But to give an industry answer, I would say Amy Hennig. I've met her a couple of times and she was just so humble and wonderful. For anyone who doesn't know, probably most well known for working at Naughty Dog as a video game writer, also a director, and has worked on a bunch of games that and really love. And I think that that's the kind of career that I want to follow in the footsteps of. Like, she worked on Uncharted, Jak and Daxter, huge beloved video games, and I'm just like, that's who I want to be when I'm Amy Hennig's age. So her for sure has always been an inspiration to me.
Great selections. Yeah, I usually when it comes to these things, I always mention other fabulous women in the industry. But for me today, I have to mention Mama Simon, my mom, just because for her, you know, my mom taught me everything that is who I am. She taught me to embrace, you know, the fact that I'm Afro-Latina. She told me to embrace being different, especially during times when, you know, it wasn't as acceptable to be different in so many different shapes and forms back then. I mean, even now it's better than it was 10, 15 years ago. And she also completely embraced my love for gaming and never looked at it as a bad thing. And when I told her, hey, give me a chance, I'm going to pursue a career in gaming, she said, go ahead. We're here to support. So honestly, if it wasn't for her, I don't even know if I would have gotten to the point I am currently in my career for gaming. So big props to family members, big props to those we look up to who help to pave the path, who have paved the path for us or support us in some shape or form. But now, you know, it's our turns to be the ones that help to pave the path for young girls and other women in the industry who are looking to lead the charge. And with leading the charge, it's great to have these kind of moments of power of collaborations. And it's not just collaborations in the sense of, you know, brand collaborations, but also collaborations amongst each other. And so how do you guys view collaboration in this industry?
I think, you know, as a huge part of my thing at IGN was we had so many podcasts and panels that were just all white dudes. And a lot of the collaboration with women and working closely with women in that company ended up being realized in having more women work on camera. So, you know, by the time I left, every podcast did have a woman. We didn't do any more E3 talk shows where there weren't women on them. And part of that is like, you know, I knew how it felt to grow up and not see any women in the position that I wanted to be in at all, and not have that realization that, oh, maybe I could do that. It was a sad realization that would probably never have happened at a lot of the main media companies if the women were not pushing for it. So we did. We had meetings, we grouped together, and we made sure that we had a positive impact and thinking about all of the other women in the space. And it was definitely a realization that things change if we make them change, not if we wait for the world to change for us. So that like component of, you know, women really standing together is super important. But I've also done a bunch of women only streams, and I think they're just like on another level fun. Like Girls Only Among Us is lit. Like it's so good because someone's like swearing at you and calling you the rudest words in the world, while also the next line like telling you how much they adore your work and think you're really pretty. Like it's just this hilarious like slew of insults and apologies. It's so much fun, and the more women we get in the space, the more I'm just like ready to celebrate, and it always feels like such a positive thing to do. So definitely internally in companies, I think it's really important, and it definitely is always the woman who has to do it, which is unfortunate, but also ends up feeling really positive at the end of the day, because you walk away and you're like, yeah, we worked together and we did something and we made a change that will make it easier for every other girl who comes after us.
I think the two things about collaboration, I 100% agree with everything Alanah said, and I could listen to her speak for hours. And I'm trying to get in on that Among Us game. But the two things that collaboration that people don't really talk about, I mean, they do talk about, depends on who you're listening to, is I think the first one is that society really tells us from day one that when there's another woman in the space, in the same space as us, who wants the same things, right? Those are your enemies. Right? That's what society tells us. It tells us we're supposed to go after that person instead of work with them, which is like fundamentally untrue. And I think the second thing is, you know, we all, everyone in this call, I'm assuming, a lot of people listening to this podcast, a lot of people, you know, in the gaming industry were probably some of the smartest people in their classes. And so we all hated group work, right? The reason why we hated group work was because we were going to do all of the work because they weren't finishing on deadlines. And even if they give you work, they knew it was crap. They knew how smart you were. So like, oh, she's going to do it anyways. So we hate group work. So we're like, okay, I'm not going to collaborate because that woman's going to take my idea. She's going to take my job. And then even if it is collaboration, I'm going to have to do all the work. And all of that is like so fundamentally untrue in gaming and esports. Like the women I have met in gaming and esports are on a different level from like all of the other women I've met in my life, except for from like rugby, but that's a different story. So I think you just not believing those myths, right? Like if you want to, there's so much work to do. There's so much work to do that even if we figured out a way to clone ourselves 1,000 times, we still wouldn't get all the work done. We need to collaborate to change this industry. We need to work together. No one's going to take your ideas. I mean, they might, but you know, whatever, let's work together. So I think just remember that the people who are in the industry with the same interests as you are there, and they're there to help you, and reach out and work together and try your best. Try your best.
I completely agree with what you said, Lindsey. I think in the fighting in community, I feel like there was a really big stigma back in the day, even before I transitioned, with women who were competing. And when they would see another woman on the come up, or I feel like they would, since there wasn't a lot of women, they would get scared that they would have someone who's better than them, or have someone who's going to beat them, and be scared that like the men would make fun of them losing their rank or whatever. But I feel like over the years, I feel like women have come together in scenes like Smash Sisters, and basically Smash Sisters is an event that they hold at Smash tournaments where it's women compete with each other and playing women-only events. And I feel like it's so important for me as a player to help share my knowledge with all the other women in the scene, and help get all the other women better, and help us all grow together and be comfortable with each other. Because I feel like in the fighting game community, there's not very much women as a whole. And I feel like the most important thing to get women into the scene is to make them feel comfortable. And what I could do by doing that is sharing my knowledge and helping everybody improve, as well as I could learn from other people too. So I think that's super important.
The thing that gets me about the competitivity thing is, and I don't have a competitive bone in my body, but like I definitely experienced it in Australia, where the industry was a lot smaller and like women would be kind of rude to each other. It's just that like, if a woman succeeds, it means that my chances of working with that woman are higher, and working with girls rules.
Yes, it does.
The best. Like almost everywhere I've ever worked, the women are the ones who are like really getting shit done. And like a guy can show up drunk and everyone's like disappointed, but nothing really happens. Like that's happened at multiple places I've worked in the games industry. Women are the ones who are like really working their asses off and making cool stuff happen. And I feel like working in an environment with that is way too discounting of all the amazing men that I've worked with too, for the record, tons of them too, but like so many women that I work with that I've just found so fun and inspiring, and it's like so nice to have them around, that it's like I promise you your culture will feel better if you work with more women. To suggest that like a woman shouldn't do something that you could also do sucks, because it takes her away from you too, and all the learning you could get from her, and all the venting that you can do together that sometimes the boys won't necessarily relate to in a lot of spaces too. It's just like more women. It's so positive overall. It's such a the vibes are so good top to bottom. I am extremely in support.
They are so good, right?
But like some of the most like positive stuff that I've done has been entirely groups of women, and you feel so good afterwards. And even just like a girls' movie night. Like if I could just have those all the time making video games, it'd be wonderful.
I feel like this is an appropriate time to plug my nonprofit, Queer Women of Esports. We have movie nights. We have a book club. We're reading The Light Brigade right now. And we play video games together. We play Among Us. So if you're looking for a community of powerful people and fun people in esports, join up.
If we're talking about like having healthier spaces overall, I feel like things are changing a lot at a lot of spaces. I remember when I first started writing about video games, when I was, just starting in games media, I was definitely the only woman in the space a lot of the time. And I never really felt super negatively about that. I don't feel like I was ever like terribly mistreated by men or anything. I certainly had people be frequently surprised that I knew anything about what it was literally my job to know about. The amount of E3 conferences where a developer would finish by being like, oh, wow, you really knew what you were talking about. Yes, the purpose of my employment. Thank you. I really appreciate that I've done the bare minimum. But I think that stuff's really changed a lot too, just by having, kind of like what we've been talking about, more women in and around those spaces, make some of those stigmas go away. So everything has felt healthier for me, like every kind of new step that I've taken in my career. I'm having a wonderful time working at Santa Monica Studio, where there are tons of women on my team, and the more of us that are visible, I think the easier it is for every girl who comes after us, for sure. Like that's the thing that always really keeps me going on a day where, if I deal with a bunch of sexist bullshit, my thought process is always, as long as I keep doing this, every girl who comes after me, it will be slightly easier for her, or she will be ridiculed a little bit less. And I feel like that makes the spaces healthier kind of for all of us. But I can't speak to esports. I feel like that's a whole other world.
In esports, I feel back in the day, and I'm thankful now that it's growing so much more than it was before, but I remember back in the day that there would be a select few, like even before I transitioned, to be a select few women players, and I just feel the environment for them, it wasn't a great environment, because I just feel like men in general, they have this stigma that women can't play games, that women aren't very good at video games. And I feel like, well, you're never going to let anybody learn or get better if you don't give them a chance. So there would be times where we'd we practicing with each other and at a tournament on the side, and some of the women players would want to come and play with us, and I would literally see men there be like, oh well, I'll play you after I play this guy, let me play this guy first, and kind of like keep recycling that same excuse over and over so you wouldn't have to play her. But it's like, well, you're here saying that these women can't play, but you're not even giving them a chance to learn and compete and get better and improve overall. But that's why I feel like it's getting better now, because there's organizations called Combo Queens in the fighting community where it's pretty much basically at every big tournament, the Combo Queens organizers, they come to the event and they basically send a bunch of Sharpie, I know, right? She's so amazing. And they send a bunch of invites to all the girls that are going to events, and we're all in a group, and then we all compete and play with each other and practice with each other just to improve and just to be in an amazing environment. Granted, like the fighting communities change where players are more willing to play with you now, but I feel back in the day it was not the same. And I feel like overall, I feel like I said earlier, I feel like it's the most important thing to get a woman and anybody in the fighting community to want to play is to make them feel comfortable, because that's the only way you're going to want to learn. Otherwise, you're going to be so discouraged and you're not going to want to compete or play or learn at all and go to any events.
Ricki, you just brought up something so important, the stereotype that women aren't good at video games. And that's harmful for a lot of reasons, but one is that it's like scientifically harmful. So there's like this stupid stereotype that men are better than women at math. And it's because like back in the 60s or 70s, a bunch of white men threw everyone into a room and stood over them in their lab coats and had everyone do math problems and were like terribly intimidating. And the women did do worse. But when they did that study again, but adjusted for confidence, there's no difference in math problems. But if you tell people that women are bad at math, they're gonna be worse at math, because stereotype threat, if you believe and you're aware of a stereotype threat, it's going to happen, right? It's like the placebo effect. So they did this study one day where they took male and female avatars and they put male and female players behind different avatars, and they had them do math problems, and the male avatars performed better on math whether or not they were operated by a female or a male. And I just said female. I can't believe I just said female. A man or a woman. Oh my god, this next question, whether or not they're operated by a man or a woman. Then the female avatars, whether or not they're operated by a man or woman. So the stereotype threat, the fact that you tell them men are better than women at math, makes them better at math, whether or not you're an avatar or not. And so that's the thing about video gaming. We tell people and we have this perception that women are good at video gaming, and so they're not going to be as good at video gaming.
That's fascinating. I know that anytime that I've ever like played a video game on a stage somewhere or even had to do it for a demo and the PR guy's like over my shoulder specifically, I play way worse than I normally would because I feel like there's all this pressure. And even like doing a live stream at IGN or at Rooster Teeth, I definitely always had a feeling of like, if I'm bad, I represent my entire gender. And like, that's a thing that every time that you play something. Like it's awful, but I never considered that could be actively making me worse at the time. And I'm not surprised by it. It would make sense why I do a lot better playing a game live if I'm slightly tipsy. It's the fake confidence, and I'm like, I'm good.
That's that state-dependent learning. You're better in the state that you learned in. I'm just saying.
We've been drinking since about 4 years old.
But like, we need people like Ricki out there crushing people in the fighting games community in a co-ed space, because that tells people watching that it doesn't matter who you are, you can play video games, right? And that's one of the other issues with this space, is that people are like, oh, it's video games, you should be good just because of how well you play, not because of any other descriptor. But the fact of the matter is from day one, women, marginalized genders, BIPOC individuals, queer people are pushed away by toxicity, by outward harassment. And so we don't get the same opportunities that everyone else does. So if you want to be the best, you have to train against the best. You can't train against the best if they're throwing gay slurs out every 2 minutes. So this is it's just such I still think we need women only spaces to nurture the culture, to be toxicity free, right? So
part of the problem that people, how they view it is that it's an additional opportunity to find talent. It's not something that's segregating. It's not removing men from women. It is just another opportunity to create a safer environment. and another space to find really amazing talent. And I think that it kind of blows my mind how they don't view it that way. Like they look at the amateur scene and they're just like, okay, that's fine. They look at collegiate, they say that's fine. But we have a tournament that's just all women competing. Now all of a sudden it's a problem. And then it's so funny when they're like, well, what about the all men tournaments?
I think that it is a fantastic idea. And I feel like sadly, I feel like I am the odd woman out saying that in my community, because I feel like there's so many women in the community who don't want to have only all women events purely based on the fact that they feel like they're being segregated and they're being singled out and they're not being able to play with the men. But I don't think that's the case. I think it's so pivotal for us to have togetherness and to learn together and to feel comfortable. I can't stress that enough, because I feel like those are the only ways that you're going to be able to learn and progress in anything you do. And you want to be uplifted. And I feel like having all women events and having something to look forward to like that is going to uplift you and it's going to keep you wanting to play and keep you wanting to compete. And it's going to drive you to just get better overall. I feel like those spaces are necessary for any kind of disenfranchised person in a scene to thrive. I think it's just an amazing idea, and I think it can only bring about good to the scene.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, Ricki. And I think that one of the people who I love listening to their opinion on this topic is Steph Harvey. If you read Miss Harvey's opinions on all women spaces in the industry, it's evolved over time, right? Her viewpoint has changed. And that's the great thing, is because if you have an opinion on all women tournaments, you can if you're a woman. You can, right? Your opinion, you don't have to agree with us because it's relevant to you. But the fact is that I'm going to throw some science out here again, is that if you have people rate their playing ability, right? You have everyone rate how good they are at a game, and then you have them all go play the game. Men will overrate themselves and women will underrate themselves, right? It's consistent. It's across the board. So how likely are you to enter a tournament? Well, you're going to enter a tournament if you think you're good enough to be in that tournament. So women don't enter tournaments because they don't think they're good enough. When in actuality, they're better than most of the dudes. They're better than the dudes who think they're great. So for example, there's a women only tournament that will already happened by the time this podcast comes out. eFuse does Women of the Arena, and there's not that many people registered. And I know people who love Fortnite. I know people who want to play that game, but they're like, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough, right? That's what women-only tournaments do, is it allows people to try out a tournament and say, oh, I am good enough. And then they go compete in a co-ed tournament, right? It's not like they're staying there for the rest of their lives. You're just giving them the opportunity to compete because they've never been given that opportunity before.
What I was going to ask is, do you see it as an integration into the regular tournaments? Like, would you see that as that being the end goal with a female-only tournaments?
I would love for, women-only tournaments to be obsolete in 10 years, right? That would be fantastic.
Gotcha.
When we've addressed generational issues like lack of access to PCs, like toxicity in gaming, when we've addressed the issues that makes the playing field uneven, I think it's going to be 30 or 40 years. But I think women-only tournaments allow women to enter competition when they otherwise wouldn't, and provides them a training ground to get better that they otherwise aren't provided. So I guess it's a stepping stone, but it's like a stepping stone that's like 100 steps long. So you're going to be on it for a little while.
Part of that process too, in terms of like changing things within the, whether it's 30 years, 10 years, 15 years, or anything like that, is that it can't just be women advocating for women, because I think that like we're doing a great job of that, but we also need men to speak up and say what's happening is wrong, the toxicity is wrong, and being okay to say that it's wrong. So how can men who want to be vocal, who want to support women, how do you guys think that they can best help in terms of their allyship as we move towards a space, in the future where all women tournaments don't have to be a thing?
I personally think overall that I feel like, well, to speak up and to be an ally, I feel like you first have to know that there's a problem and there's an issue. And I honestly feel like in my 10 years of transitioning and before I have the luxury, I wouldn't say luxury, but I've had the life experience of presenting as a male and presenting as a female. And I know for a fact that being in the scene that I'm in and just navigating the world, like male privilege is 100% there. Like it's completely there. And I feel like for that to be changed, I feel like a man would have to be able to check his own privilege and be able to say, look, these are the problems and this is what's going on. I feel the reason why a lot of men don't do that is because ultimately I feel they're scared to give up their privilege, or they don't even think that they have a privilege. I feel like they're the kind of guys who say, oh, like, well, not every guy is like that, or I'm not like every guy. It's like saying kind of like, if you're saying something like that, then you do not realize or recognize that you have a particular privilege when you in fact do.
Ricki, I was like dying when you were saying those things because I just agree so wholeheartedly. Like, why is esports exclusionary? Is it because everyone involved is a bad person? Of course not. It's because the people who are involved in esports, the people who are in leadership, are benefiting from the exclusion. They're benefiting from the hierarchy. If you all of a sudden start accepting women and queer people and BIPOC individuals, then they have more competition for their jobs. They have more competition, right? So that's really what's going on. Exactly what Ricki said. It's this hierarchy that we need to smash. We need to smash it. And it's easy to be an ally in June, right? It's easy to throw some rainbow packaging on your Twitter profile. It's easy to like find the one Black person you know to stream during Black History Month, right? It's not easy when the CEO of your company misgenders your buddy who goes by they, them pronouns. It's not easy when you're sticking up for someone who you're not related to or you're not friends with, right? So allyship means treating random strangers the same way you would treat like your gay kid sister. That's what allyship means. It means giving everyone that same courtesy, sticking up for them just as much as you would when a guy says something inappropriate to your sister in a bar, right? So just be a good dude.
Alanah, what about you within gaming and the content creation space within gaming? Like, how have you seen allyship come to the forefront, and what do you think could be a way that they can improve allyship as well?
I feel like by having been in the industry for as long as I have been, like, personally operate with a pretty tremendous level of privilege. And I just am aware of that, you know, like if there's a man who treats me badly, I am confident enough that I can take it to the CEO of a company and be like, hey, this dude messed up. Let's get rid of him. Not that I have done that, but I'm sure that I could without it having an impact on my career. And one thing that I've come to notice is the amount of other women who feel like they're in similar positions as me, who create whisper networks. And I was such a huge fan of that when I started to realize that it was happening. And I consider that to be a pretty strong kind of allyship, is the women who recognize that they have privilege or power in the spaces, using those appropriately to help the women who don't. I think it's super important too. Like, you know, if a woman comes to me with I mean, it's happened a million times. It's so much more common than even people think that it is, you know, a sexual harassment or even sexual assault case that's within the games industry, and they're too afraid to do anything. It really does require, I feel like, the other women in the space who have built privilege to own their own privilege as well, to help out people who are a lot newer or a lot more scared to actually grow into those spaces too. So that stuff is happening, and it's like, it's very cool. Like the way these whisper networks kind of spread to support women is like, it feels like some FBI shit. Like these women are like, hell no, we will take them down. We will make sure that you are okay. And I love to see that stuff. And yeah, I feel like it's definitely pretty strong. But I mean, the truth across the board is still, you know, I announced that I was writing a video game for PlayStation Studios, and there are Reddit threads and Resetera threads and tweets, like thousands of them saying, what are her qualifications? Why didn't you hire someone who went to university for writing? Guess what? I did. But they just assume that I didn't. They're just like, she can't possibly have education in this field. She can't possibly have been a writer for 7 years straight. And that kind of thing. It's still a junior position too. And I was really happy to see a lot of men come out in my support. David Jaffe, the creator of God of War, was pretty blatantly like, if a man were hired into a junior writing position at PlayStation, nobody would have said a word. Like, none of you would have cared at all at any point. And it was really nice to have support from him and like Herman Holst, who's the head of PlayStation Studios, and a bunch of other people stood up for me there. But it was definitely a thing that I expected. I also have the expectation that anything that Santa Monica Studios releases that people don't like, I will be blamed for, even if I have absolutely nothing to do with it. If something is wrong with any of their games, it will be my fault. And if anything is good, it will never be to my credit. And I'm just fully aware of that stuff. And I think that it's so important for people to try to stick up for women. And I think that's one thing where sometimes the men that I've known have fallen short is that they're like, think that they're doing something by including me on a video, and it's like, but that's not trying. I'm your buddy. I'm super easy to just text and I'll be like, sure, I'll play Among Us with you, but that's not trying. Like, you think you're filling a quota, but you're not trying to help people. You're not trying to give anyone advantages. You're not actually doing anything that requires effort. You're just texting me. Like, it's got to be more than that. There have to be more women in the space that you know, that you really like, that you want to prop up, that you want to support. And I think that that's like a really common criticism that I have of good people, is that they very, very much think that doing the bare minimum is enough, because they're like, but I'm ticking the boxes. You can tick the boxes without actually really helping anyone. That's definitely a thing I would like to see more in allyship, is like just making effort to be like, what am I doing that is actually making any kind of difference? Like, is having Alanah on this stream really helping women as a whole when she's already been on 10 of them? Like, are there more people that I can invite to be on this streams? Is it still just going to be one girl every time? There needs to just be a little bit more effort put in from a lot of people who aren't doing anything wrong, but could be doing a lot more. And I think it's just a little bit of trying, just a tiny little bit of assessing it and trying. If you want to be an ally, I don't think, like, I fully agree, don't just put a rainbow flag in your bio every now and then. You have to actually actively try to make a difference in the space. And full credit to the kind people who aren't trying and not realizing it. I would just like to see a little bit more.
Absolutely. That's understandable. And I like the point that you were mentioning, how like anytime it's Women's History Month or Black History Month or Pride Month or anything, it's like sometimes they want, other individuals want to help, but the problem is like they go to like the same few women or the same few Black people or the same few LGBTQ plus, but it's like, no, there's more, and there's more that are doing amazing things. And it's like, even the simplest thing as like, hey, I appreciate and I'm thankful that you give me this opportunity, but you should really give this to this person, or hey, check out this person. Even that alone can do so much.
Is so easy, but it's not enough. And
it's not enough. And also, what's not enough too is this. Alanah, I actually saw you tweeting about it. I don't know if it was with Steven Spawn's Twitter or not, but the whole concept of femininity, right? And how women are judged in this space based off of how feminine they are, or how straight presenting they are, or if people assume that they're straight, or if they're queer, they're treated differently. And everyone has different experiences with this, but for you three, your individual experiences, how has it been, battling this kind of archaic viewpoint of femininity in an industry that's male dominated, and as well as navigating your individual sexual orientations and things like that? Like, it's so much dynamics to it that every single one of us have to navigate in this space.
So my problem with this is a lot of my friends and people in the scene were so welcoming and loving with the fact that I came out as trans and I transitioned a while ago, and everybody welcomed me with open arms. But what I wasn't really prepared for was the fact that the entirety of my career would shift from how good of a player I was and all the accolades that I have and everything that I've done in gaming for the past, I don't know, like almost 20 years, to just purely face on the fact about how I look. If I'm pretty that day, if I have my hair done, if I'm wearing makeup on stream, if I look fat, if I look skinny, nothing about the game, nothing about beating another top player, nothing about Ricki being amazing at this fighting game. But before I transition as a male, I can walk into a tournament with paper bag on, and you would hear everybody be like, yes, queen, like he's rocking that paper bag or whatever. But as soon as I transition into a female, it's everything just based upon my looks. And now every time I lose, someone's like, oh, like, well, Ricki lost because she's a girl now and girls can't play video games. And it's like, you guys are such morons for saying stuff like that. Like, it's just like, you guys need to like fixate on, and I always say this, I want players to focus on the game, because we were all there to do a common thing, and we're all there to have fun and compete and do something that we all love, and that should be the main focus, not how someone looks that day or looks in general.
I think Alanah brought up a really good point earlier about talking about our privilege. And so when I answer this question, I'm answering it as a white, cisgendered, lipstick lesbian who happens to be a doctor. So like, the struggles that I've had aren't that bad right? Like I'm like Alana's talking about, you know, her buddies choosing the safe option. I'm the safe option, right? Like I'm not offending anyone. And even like the worst people. So it's hard for me to answer this conversation because I think the struggles I have are nothing compared to most people. And so like, that's the whole reason I formed my nonprofit is like, okay, I have this incredible privilege. I have this thing. I've had these experiences. It's so much worse for everybody else. What am I going to do about it? Right? Like, am I going to sit back and enjoy my privilege? Am I going to sit back and enjoy the sponsorships because I'm the safest option and I can be thrown up for Women's History Month or Pride Month, whatever you want? No, of course not. Don't sit back on your privilege. Stand up and do something about it. Like, and so that's what I always try to do. Like, I know I'm not going to sit here and talk about the struggles I've had because like, they're not that bad compared to other people in this industry, compared to other people, the people who have gotten this far in the podcast, right? The people who aren't offended by us talking about white men. Your struggles are worse than mine. And I'm here for it. Keep crushing it. Keep finding that community. You're doing something amazing for a lot of people out there. And I'm friggin' proud of you. So that's all I got about that.
Listen, I definitely agree and feel like I should also pass based on everything you just said. But when I tweeted about this, so many women agreed. And I realized that I had never spoken about it publicly and that other women sharing that they felt the same way had an impact on me. So a struggle that I've had for the longest time that I know sounds so fucking dumb whenever I talk about it is this idea that I have become one of the good ones. Sometimes like men will be like, oh, well, you don't have your tits out when you stream. You're one of the good ones though. Like you actually know what you're talking about. And I'm like, I have best friends who have OnlyFans and I'm like, go for it. Like, I love that. I'm like, I don't want to be the good one because I wear a t-shirt. What you're telling me is that I'm not allowed to. Like what you're telling me is you're good as long as you dress exactly as you are right now. And I always feel the need to like comment and reply and be like, all you're actually doing to me is giving me this pressure that I've had for the longest time, even like growing up as, you know, a quote unquote tomboy. And it's this thing that has just lasted for so long that anytime that I present as feminine, my entire career means nothing. So if I wear a pretty dress and some heels to an award show, oh, she's actually been a whore the whole time. Oh, never mind any of her experience. It all means absolutely nothing. Every single time that I choose to feel pretty, I'm terrified. I'm like, they're gonna come for my whole career. This is gonna be the image that's shared anytime anyone talks about me. But it's like, but I just want to feel nice. I just want to feel nice once every now and then, just please. And they're like, you're not allowed. Nope, you have to wear the t-shirts and the hoodies at all times, always, or nothing you say is valid. And all of the other women in the space, who I'm a huge fan of, like I have so many friends who stream with their tits out and I'm like, I love tits. This is like, I'm a huge fan of this content. Please do more of it. Just because I'm not doing it doesn't mean I don't support it or I think those women are worth anything less. Like, I'm like, hell yeah. Like, I wish I was confident enough to be able to just wear whatever I want at all times and not care about it. But it is this consistent pressure that I just like, as a woman with large breasts who hides them most of the time and occasionally lets it slip, I feel like I have this struggle of if I just owned it more and didn't like feel like I have to hide it all the time, then it would be easier for every woman who comes after me. They maybe wouldn't have to deal with the scrutiny because it would be like, well, Alanah knows what she's talking about. She's done well in the industry and she dresses feminine, but I just can't get past it. Like, I'm just like, but everything that I do will just not mean anything. And it seems like such a stupid thing to complain about that anytime that I like have spoken about it, which is so rare, I'm always like, what I'm telling you is that I'm afraid of my own boobs. It's so dumb and I know that. But there is this pressure to not be too girly, not be too feminine, or you immediately don't know what you're talking about. And I've seen that in workplaces too, where I succeeded by being a tomboyish woman who like, the boys were like, Alanah, she doesn't count. She's one of the bros. But then the women who were like more into Pokemon and Animal Crossing, more openly feminine about that kind of thing, were like, should we really use her for this though? And it was just so like, even men who were more feminine would treat it that way. The men who like persona too much are treated as though they're a little bit too feminine for the space and that maybe we shouldn't take them seriously on Call of Duty. You can like a lot of things. And I feel that that's a pressure that it's like, just so overwhelming all the time is how feminine am I allowed to be? Is femininity as a concept allowed in the space yet? And I think the answer is generally no.
Alanah, I love everything that you just said, because what we're trying to do here, what we're trying to do with these conversations isn't to smash the patriarchy, isn't to break down what esports and gaming is, isn't to pull down male people, our male colleagues to bring ourselves up. All we want to do is exist and it not be political. All we want to do is go outside and wear clothing. All we want to do is play video games and just be able to exist without being harassed because of our gender, because of our sexual identity.
Right?
I think you're asking for a bit much. I think
Whoa.
you maybe need to pipe down a bit. That's okay. And I'd like $1 million.
It's interesting that it's interesting just to hear everyone's different perspective, because it just feels like no matter which way we go, whether it's to be super feminine, whether it's to be androgynous or anything like that, there's always criticism. I mean, I think for me, obviously someone's going to always criticize because I'm black, right? So I already have criticism nonstop just because of that. But I realized I cut my hair short 2 years ago. I've had long hair my entire life. And the second that I cut my hair, that's when it's like, oh, she's a lesbian. Oh, what is she? She probably hates men. Now, mind you, they're 50% right because I'm bi, so you kind of are half right. But it's just funny how the second I cut my hair, there's no difference in terms of what I wear. Sometimes I'm super tomboyish and sometimes I'm super femme. No difference, just cutting my hair. And all of a sudden I am judged or critiqued a certain way. Or if they don't like what my opinions are, they automatically be like, oh, she looks like a man. And I'm like, what? I literally I'm not anything different than what I was before. I just have shorter hair. So it's interesting how appearance is such an instrumental part towards what they view as success for a woman, as well as criticism for women. It's very interesting how there's really no, it's just sometimes I wish that they would just look back and be like, oh, we're being kind of ridiculous. Because let's keep it a buck. Men can be mediocre. Men are allowed to be mediocre. And we see it in gaming. We see it in esports. We see it in entertainment, period. But it's just those kind of standards are not allowed for women, and especially when it comes to appearance. And it's unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, I got my job at Santa Monica Studio as a writer. Having studied writing at university, I write for a living. I have for the last decade. And it still was, well, you got your job because I think you're hot. As a writer, nobody sees me. Why would this have happened? And it's a thing that no one would ever say to an attractive man. It's just it's this weird shame of making choices. Hair's a huge one. I've always had long hair and I've always kept it long. And I think this is something that's been reinforced my whole life because someone told me, and not that I even think this is a bad thing as someone who is not straight, if you get a haircut, you are just 100% a lesbian. I was told maybe when I was 8, they were like, you're one short haircut away from being a lesbian. And I was always like, this is the only feminine thing about me. And so I just clung to it as this weird thing that it's I'm now terrified of cutting my hair short. Again, not that I have any beef with lesbians. It's just a thing that was always
right here, Alanah.
It doesn't change. I promise. I promise. Ladies, thank you so much. I want to make sure we're able to end this on time because I know you are some busy women out here. Thank you so much for speaking your truth, speaking the truth, and being honest and open about the conversations as women in this industry. And I think not only is it important, like I say, to highlight the obstacles and challenges, but also good to talk about the positives and also just show the camaraderie that we have, and also discuss the steps and the allyships that we can implement and others can implement towards making the industry just better for everyone. For those who are tuning in, my name is Erin Ashley Simon. You are watching another episode of the Live Proud podcast powered by Evil Geniuses. Please make sure you follow these ladies on social media. They have some great insights, great perspectives, and they're doing amazing things in this space. And we will catch you guys on the next episode. All right, everyone. I'll see you later.